Hello again. Now it's time for proposal writing 4. Today we will discuss how to create your Gantt chart or your timeline and how to estimate your budget provisionally while you are writing your proposal. So what is the timeline? Actually, the timeline, it's a very important tool that has to be available in any proposal that you write. It's also something that we are going to use in the future when we get to implement our project. The timeline shows us how the activities or the main activities are written and are planned to happen over the estimated time span of the project. So on the timeline, you either put in the main activities or you put in something that you guide yourself with, like for example, the main deliverables or the main outputs. And when we say output, we are referring to something that comes out of the project, something that you can physically see and feel. So it's an important planning tool. It helps establish the competency, and it also makes sure that you revise your project activities and make sure that they are realistic. It's time to revise them while you're putting your timeline. You can either present it in a tabular form or a graphic form, and we call that Gantt chart, and we usually use Excel to create the Gantt chart, or it can be in the form of diagrams and flowcharts, or it can be in the form of a line where you jot down your main activities and your main deliverables. So in activity 1, you are supposed to map the tasks. Remember the tasks that we worked on in proposal writing 3 session? You now have a list of tasks. Each of these tasks has to be mapped against the timeline or against the time span where it should happen. For example, if you open your workbook has a Gantt chart section. In the Gantt chart section, you will see that on the column, the left column, you should be writing your tasks, and on the first row, you should be writing your timeline. So for example, if you want to start your project in March, you will write March in the first column and go and increase as you go until you reach the last month or the last proposed month of your project time. So this will put you in a table where the row represents the time and the column represents the tasks. And then you start labeling down where you start with the task and where you end with the task. You can color these boxes, or you can just draw a line of shading in them. So at the end of the day, you get a map, a table that has shadings indicating the start of the project and indicating the start of the task and indicating the end of the task. We can get to do this with all your tasks, and while you're doing that, we encourage you to take a look at the starts and the ends of the tasks and make sure that there is no dependency between any task or the other. So if a task is dependent on another or has to start when one task ends, make sure on your Gantt chart you have planned for this task to start after the first task. Now with the budget, when we speak a little bit about the budget, it's time to appreciate your costs. Just take a look at the costs and make sure that these costs are within the scope of what you can afford or within the scope of what you can actually provide for the project. Of course, you won't pay everything from your pocket, but you will be required maybe to look for funding for individual parts or aspects of your project. So it's good for people who will pay for your project to happen to be able to know how much these tasks will actually cost. So make sure you start by providing explanations for the following. Number 1, do you need any technology for each task? So you hold task by task and then ask yourself, is there any specific technology? Do you need to hold a conference? Do you need instruments? Do you need staff? What do you need? Do you need to buy anything? So do you really need this or that? And then you readjust. So probably when you are doing that, you start asking yourself, do I really need this piece of equipment? Do I really need to hold this conference? Can I do this in, for example, the university hall instead of hiring a hall in the in a hotel, for example, because it will cost you a lot? So it is good to be able to map down what you think you can and cannot afford. So translate the project activities into monetary terms. Is the budget is actually the statement of how much money will be required to do any task. Major items that we use. Sometimes we need salary for staff, travel. Sometimes we need to purchase equipment to print or to Xerox, to do some consultancy charges, and always remember to put something called institutional overheads. And this is like a rough estimate of what the institution actually burdens itself with in terms of cost when they help you perform the project. These are the things that are translated into electricity that you use, into halls that you use, and sometimes into salaries that staff do not take but perform without being paid for. Now it's time to hold task by task and ask yourself the previous questions. What do you need for each task? And when you do that, you try to write an estimated number or an estimated amount that would usually cover this part of the budget. So for example, if you actually need staff to help you, you ask yourself, how many are they and how many days will they be working? So will it be okay to give everyone, for example, X amount of money? Then add this amount together and we call it staff cost. Then you ask yourself, what do I need to buy? Then you ask yourself, what else can I put, do I need to purchase for this? Do I need to hold any conference? Do I need to hire some expertise from outside? And you translate each one of those into a monetary account, a monetary amount, I mean. You add this all up, and this is the cost of that task. When you do that, you ask yourself, how much is my staff cost altogether? So you add all the staff cost in all the tasks, and now you know what your staff cost is. Then you ask yourself, how much is my purchase cost? And then you add all the purchases that you had to buy for all the tasks, and then this is your purchase cost. When you add these amounts all together, take care that usually your university takes an overhead of about 10 to 20% of the total budget. So now that you know how much you actually need for the project, you increase the number by 10 to 20% and make sure that the total budget amount has this amount included in it. So the take-home message for you is, you learn to do needs assessment. You learned to do that before. So you learned to do needs assessment. It was a crucial step. And this is why it's a crucial step, because now it's time to estimate your budget. And when you estimate your budget, it's always important to know that your budget is a reflection of what you actually need. So now that you've done the needs assessment, now that you've jotted in your tasks, now it's time to map them against the timeline, and also to estimate what the cost is to perform these tasks. Always remember that you always have to go back and visit. Maybe there are tasks that you don't really need, so it's time to cross them out. Maybe the objectives need to be redesigned or restudied. It's time to revise them. And maybe, just maybe, your problem definition needs to be revised again at this point of time, now that you know that the timeline, maybe it's not feasible, and that the budget will not be feasible. So this just tells you that it's always under revision. You revise and re-revise your problem definition, your goals and objectives, your outputs and tasks, and then at the end you come out with a proposal where there is an estimated timeline and an estimated budget for. Thank you so much. Now you know you have to work on your workbook and finish your workbook for your proposal. Good luck with that. If you have any questions, we will be happy to answer your questions in the comment section below. And thank you so much.